Hey everybody, it's Michael Ortman back on the Ortman Farms podcast. And I just want to talk about today, like mindset. Kind of been asked recently, or people ask me, why do I keep going? Why do we keep trying? Uh, because this, because of what we're doing is, it's tough. It's an unpavement. Well, people have done what I'm trying to tackle with building this farm-to-table delivery system. Break away from the existing model of how farms get paid and just reconnect back with the customers, which is you guys. And it's been a grind. To say the least. Farming in general is tough. It's tough work. Every farm that you go to, most of those farmers, they're working 12, 16-hour days repeatedly. If you're in animal agriculture specifically dairy farming, it is the most demanding, time sensitive. There's no holidays, there's no sick time, there's no vacation that you can just put your hand up and say, hey, I'm not showing up today. Farming, if you own the farm, if you own the business, you're giving everything you got, and it's going to just keep taking, and then it's going to take more from you. Especially dairy farming, because the cows need to be milked twice a day. They need to be fed. They need to be cared for. If they get sick, if they get whatever, and the weather doesn't matter, how you feel doesn't matter. If you're gonna have the animals, honestly, your desires, your own well-being, it comes second. Everything comes second, because in animal agriculture, the second that we decide to pen up animals in a barn, milk them, corral them, whatever the case we gotta do with them, those animals rely 100% on us to take care of them. So your day does not end until every animal has been cared for to what you believe is the best of your abilities. Whether or not it means you have to call people to come help you, or if the help doesn't show up, you just gotta keep going. If there's a breakdown, you just gotta keep going. If it's 30 below, you gotta just keep going. It doesn't matter. Animals don't care, honestly. They don't care about what problems you got going on in your own life, whether or not you got family issues, whether or not somebody just passed away. Honestly, it doesn't matter. To live this life, you have to be willing to give everything. And it's a lot of people, it's hard to understand that, because you work 40 hours, you work 50, maybe get some overtime, you work 9 to 5. You get to have, you go to work for somebody, and then that's it. You get to go home, spend a few hours with your family, your kids, do your own thing, and then you show back up to work the next day and you start again. And even with businesses too, businesses that are, finance, construction, anything where they can say, okay, we're done for the day. Yes, I know a lot of entrepreneurs, you're working late, you're grinding, and so on and so forth, like you're hustling. But you can choose, if you don't have to worry about the well-being of animals, you just get to say, okay, that's it, I'm done today. Or, hey, I don't feel good, maybe I'm only going to work 2 hours today. Or maybe I'm going to work 10 hours instead of 16, or something. Like, you just have more flexibility. Dairy farming is very unique, especially when you're on a smaller sized farm. It's even tougher, because you're working with less help. So if the help is sick, they're not going to show up. Unfortunately, you got to go. Or you don't have help that day, or something happens. Like, you just got to keep pushing. I don't know the countless number of times that I have worked through being extraordinarily sick is incredible. through the times of injuries. It doesn't matter all the times I think about it. And which is, honestly, it's a good thing to have happened, because it humbles us. It humbles me. Makes men and women stronger to know that, hey, our little problems don't matter that much, because there's things out there that are greater than us. There's things out there that require responsibility, and then if we can then, through the tough times, persevere, we come out on the other side and we're just that much more stronger. So it's always it's a way to continuously challenge ourselves and get better and have growth, and be even more connected to Earth and everything, because we're directly involved with the well-being and caring of these animals every single day. And this is how we make our living. It's like, people can say, well, you don't have to do it. You're right. We don't have to do this. Just like nobody has to do anything. But this is what we're choosing to do. And we're no better than anybody. We're no worse off than anybody. It just is. We just do what we do. But we farmers, especially animal agriculture, you work in the shadows all day long. Nobody knows about the battles that you're fighting. You're going to either win or lose, and if you lose, unfortunately, you're going to keep going until you win whatever problem you're having to solve at that time, because it's all on you, ultimately. Whoever is responsible, it's ultimately all on them. And I've had a few ups and downs, when I first got started with dairy farming. So I was in the Marine Corps Reserves for 6 years, which allowed me to continue to still run the farm and go to paramedic school and help my dad and stuff before I officially took the farm over, or became officially the main player in it. So when I was growing up, my father started the farm with 9 cows, and it was a struggle. So he started with 9 cows. He started with a dumping station. A dumping station was where you milk the cows into a pail, carry the milk. Well, let me phrase it. He carried the milk to the bulk tank, dumped it into the bulk tank, and then he went to a dumping station, which had it's basically a tub in the middle where you're milking the cows, and there's a hose that sucks the milk to the tank. And then he went to a pipeline, but he kept persevering, overcoming. And he started the business off, being undercapitalized with 3 young kids. He had to do all the work himself, and he built and grew and had those obstacles overcome. And to the point where he was able to raise a family of 3. And he did all this at 45. I don't know the exact age he was, but he was in his mid-40s when he officially fully committed to dairy farming. And he worked, every day, 16-hour days. He was a small farmer, so he didn't have, all the help was either through his kids, or maybe he had somebody to come and help him for a little bit, but he did most of the work himself. And he consistently worked 12, 16-hour days, and it was nothing. So I got to witness that and see that it's possible, it's doable, it's not hard. If you believe in something, you just keep going at it. So he did that, and then obviously I grew up with him dairy farming. So he started dairy farming, and then as I was able to start remembering and being old enough to help out, I helped farm and be a part of the whole growth stage throughout before I decided to take it over. And then when I decided to say, okay, my wife and I, we're going to move back, we're going to take the farm over, it's like, okay, milking 40 cows is not enough to support 2 families. So I was like, okay, let's, we'll put some more cows on, and that way we can start generating the dollars in order to support 2 families at the time. So I think it was 2017. I had bought a herd of cattle from a neighboring farm. She had processed her own milk. They did like yogurt, She milked all jerseys, and so I bought almost all of her own cows and heifers. And it was, I think it was, no, it was New Year's Day of January of 2017 is when the first major obstacle presented itself. So on January 1st, we had a cow give birth, and she had a set of twins. And unfortunately, the twins, they were breached and they were kind of twisted together. So she was unable to give the birth to the calves without them, and where they ended up dying inside of her before we could get the calves out. So we had to have the vet come, and then the vet helped us get the twins out of the mother so we could save the mother. And then unfortunately, because it was such a traumatic birthing, we did everything we could. So it was we dealt with her for a couple weeks. She had like milk fever, which is a low calcium event. She had ketosis, and then just the trauma from the birth. She ended up not surviving. And that we didn't think too much of it at the time. And at the time we had we also had our nutritionalist who ended up having some medical problems, and she was no longer a nutritionalist. So basically what that means is, for on dairy farms, we take the feed that we produce or forages, we test it, see what kind of energy and protein is in it, and then from there we then formulate the ration of grain that we're going to buy, so that way we can get the pounds of milk out of cows based off of the feed values that we have. Well, our nutritionalist unfortunately had some medical problems, so she was not doing it anymore, and we had a fill-in. And at the time, we were feeding a mash instead of a pellet. And what that means is, a pellet, all the grain is like it's a pellet form. It's all mixed together. It's all compacted, so everything's the same constantly. Versus a mash, where it's just like a cornmeal, soybean minerals. It's just all together. And the way that we get the grain off the grain truck and into our grain bin is they use vacuum to blow the grain. So what was happening, which we ended up finding out after a long process, we ended up finding out that the grain was separating in the fill pipes we were using, because we were blowing the grain horizontally, because we had put a bar addition on, which forced us to have to blow the grain across the floor through these pipes up into the bin. So what was happening is the grain, the minerals, the corn, everything was separating as it fell into the grain bin. So then what was going on is, as we were feeding the grain, it was inconsistent coming out of our own grain bin. So some cows were getting all the minerals and proteins they needed, some cows weren't. And we didn't know this. So the first cow unfortunately passed away because a set of twins, that happens on a dairy farm. It happens. And then a little bit later, we had another incident with the calving. And mind you, all these cows that I had bought were going to start giving birth in the first 3 and 4 months of 2017. So that way we could start milking them all at the same time, and then be able to, then we have the cash flow and everything else for growth stage. Well, anyways, and then we're like, okay, we had another incident. This cow, unfortunately, with another atypical thing, got mastitis, an infection, and then we battled, and she just went downhill. But it was all starting to happen after the cows gave birth. But anyways, and then we had another Jersey. Now, this one, the cow was healthy, the cow gave birth, everything was clean, everything was great. There was no reason for why this cow, went down, meaning that it had milk fever. milk fever is not uncommon for cows to get after calving, just because the demand for calcium is so high, because the cow goes from having a calf to then producing no milk to then producing 50, 60, 70 pounds of milk all within days of calving. And we didn't, at that time, we typically didn't have any issues with cows giving birth. We actually went many years without losing a cow or having to give like calcium and stuff to the cows. And then after that, we started having more cows give birth, and they just were not getting going. Like they would get milk fever, they'd go down, we give them a bunch of calcium, B12 vitamins, we'd do everything we could for them. And then unfortunately it was like, this is very weird, now we lost 3, 4, 5 cows. And then we started doing necropsies on the cows, which was an animal autopsy. And we found out that the liver was basically like a bag of marbles. And what was going on was the cows were having, the cows that I had bought, they had some parasite called liver flukes. Liver flukes is a parasite that travels with snails. It likes wetter ground, and it's not really seen very often anymore in dairy herds because a lot of cows don't graze or pasture their animals anymore. A lot of cows, they have indoor herds in these tie stall or freestall barns, so they don't actually go outside and grass and stuff anymore. But this herd I bought, they were all on pasture, and in a wetter pasture. So what was going on is those Jerseys, when they grazed, they would eat the snail accidentally. Snail gets inside the cow, and then the parasite's now in the cow, and the parasite would migrate to the liver, mess up the liver, and then after that, it would pass out the cow, typically in the fall. And the cow, you had no indication of this. The cow would look beautiful. It would bag up nice, have no problem with the initial calving issue. They would clean and everything. The cows would clean. But then after that, there was too much stress on the cow to be able to come back from it. And then there's only way we could find out if the cow had liver flukes or not, 100% confirmed, is when the cow died. So what we then had to do was, it was basically a game of Russian roulette. We didn't know exactly what cows had and what cows didn't, because there's no way to test for when the cow was living. So over the next 4 months, we ended up putting down, it was like 32 of 36 cows that we bought, unfortunately, which in the first few months of me getting into agriculture and the dairy industry, it was a slight obstacle, to say the least. What we were supposed to do, we had the vet there every day, just about. You just didn't know, and this never happens. Was rarely seen. So that was the first obstacle that we started, that I got to start with. So and you're talking about, you put down 32 or 34 or 36 cows. Every cow cost at the time, it was, I think I paid $1,345 at the time per cow. And then it's not just the cow, it's also all the inputs you had to put into the cow, all the vet supplies, the vet bills, and now the loss of milk, and now still the empty stall. It was everything that just compounded itself into a perfect storm, which then put us in a position as well, what do we do now? And that was a a humbling experience because, when you try to first get started, you want to farm, you want to do this, and then you get knocked out uh, from events is not your control, because then coupled with the liver flukes, our nutritionalist who we always had was not there, and the finding out the grain wasn't right. So between the liver flukes and the inconsistent grain that we're feeding that we were unaware of because of the information was not there, met for a perfect storm where it was super annoying because we did everything we could to take care of these animals.